Ever had a neighbor try to control everything from the color of your garden gnome to the air you breathe? Well, I did more than fight back. I bought the river, and then I bought the HOA. This isn't just about a cabin. It's about what happens when one man flips a script on control freaks with facts, law, and a whole lot of strategy. Welcome to Rise Fuel, where stories ignite rebellion and rebuild real community. Let's get into it. Asterisk. She was already standing there when I pulled up, arms folded, chin high, like she'd been waiting all morning just to stop me. I hadn't even killed the engine when she marched straight toward the front of my truck and shouted, loud enough for the trees to hear, "You can't build here. This is HOA land." I stepped out slow, boots crunching the gravel. The cabin materials were all stacked behind me in the trailer, ready to go. The sun had barely cleared the ridge, and already I could feel the day heating up, not from the weather, but from whatever this woman was trying to start. I kept my voice calm. I didn't yell, didn't match her tone. That's what people like her want. "Ma'am, this is my land. I've got the deed. I bought this whole lot legally and directly." She squinted at me like I'd just spoken another language. "That's impossible," she said, tapping her phone. "This entire stretch is under Hartwell community jurisdiction. You can't build without board approval. It's in the guidelines." I looked past her, down the slope toward the river, my river, the one I'd walked alongside as a kid before it got choked with red tape and fake fences. "I bought this land to escape people exactly like her. This land isn't under any HOA," I said, keeping my tone flat. "There's no board, no jurisdiction, and no guidelines. I checked the county records myself before I made the purchase." Her mouth twitched. "No one buys riverfront this clean without strings attached," she said, "so either you're lying, or you got scammed." I almost laughed, but I didn't, because the anger was real now, not just at her, but at how many people probably gave up and backed down just because someone like her talked loud and waved around a clipboard. "You don't even know where your boundaries end," I told her. That's when she did it, pulled out her phone like a weapon, turned slightly and said into the receiver, "Yes, this is Beverly Hartwell with Hartwell Community Council. There's an aggressive man on private land near Lot 14. He's refusing to leave. I'm afraid for my safety." I blinked. Lot 14 was mine. She ended the call with a fake sigh and turned back to me, smiling just enough to make my skin crawl. "You'll be off this property before lunch," she said. "We don't tolerate squatters." I didn't answer, which is opened. The truck door, reached in, and grabbed the black folder I kept tucked under the seat. Inside, deed, coordinates, surveyor's map, water rights, all legal, all notarized. I didn't hand it to her because she wasn't the one I needed to prove anything to. Let the cops come, let them try. She didn't know it yet, but the river, the trees, the ground she was standing on, it all belonged to me, and she had just made her first mistake. Asterisk. It took the sheriff 23 minutes to show up. Not a city cop, a county deputy in a dust-covered SUV, lights off, driving like he already knew this wasn't urgent. I stood by the trailer, arms crossed. Beverly was perched on a folding chair she must have brought just to make this a performance. As soon as the deputy stepped out, she jumped up like her savior had arrived. "Officer, thank God." I was scared he might get violent. He barely looked at her, walked right up to me instead. "You the one building the cabin?" "That's right," I said. "My name's Timber Mitchell. I've got my documents right here." Beverly pushed in between us. "Don't listen to him. This land is under Hartwell community regulations. He has no right to be here. He's trespassing and disturbing protected wetlands." He gave her a look, not angry, not kind, just tired. Like he'd heard this kind of talk before. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "do you have any legal ownership of this parcel?" She hesitated. "Well, I represent the HOA." He raised a brow. I asked. "About ownership?" Her jaw tensed. "Hartwell Council manages the area. He's not following community protocol." "That's not what I asked." I handed him the folder. He opened it, flipped through the pages, then gave me a small nod. "Deeds clean, county stamps match. You're on your land, Mr. Mitchell." Beverly's face flushed dark. "Wait a second. You're just going to let him destroy the riverbank? This whole road is governed." "No, ma'am, it's not." The deputy cut her off. "This area was removed from HOA zoning back in '09 after the original developer defaulted. This man owns his parcel. He owns it straight to the river." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Now," he continued, turning toward her, "if you keep stepping on his property, that's trespassing. And if you keep pretending to be law enforcement or issuing fake notices, that's impersonation." The silence after that was sharp. The birds were still chirping in the trees like nothing had happened, but Beverly was standing stiff, like she'd just been punched in the stomach without warning. She tried to recover. "This is a mistake. I'll have the council send a formal letter." The deputy tilted his head. "Council doesn't have jurisdiction. Don't make this into something bigger than it already is." She took a step back. "I'll be speaking to my lawyer." "You do that," he said, then turned back to me and tipped his hat. "You're clear to build, Mr. Mitchell. Just stay within your boundary and don't let the drama pull you in." As he walked back to his cruiser, Beverly glared at me like the ground that had betrayed her, and still she didn't leave. She just stood there, fists clenched, jaw twitching. She wasn't done. I knew it, and she didn't even know the half of what I had planned. Asterisk. I thought she might back off after the deputy left. Most people would have, but not Beverly. The next morning I found a red warning notice nailed to the pine tree by my cabin frame, written in bold block letters like some kind of official citation. Unauthorized construction, cease and desist. Immediately. No signature, no legal code, just a logo at the bottom. Hartwell Community Enrichment Council. It looked like it was printed on her home printer. I took it down, folded it once, and slid it in my back pocket. Then I walked over to the river, let the cold morning water run through my hands, and smiled. I wasn't just building a cabin here. I was building something that belonged to me, not rented, not regulated, not borrowed, and people like her couldn't stand that. By noon I had the first row of beams set. That's when the drone came. It buzzed in from the east side, low and loud, circling above the clearing like a wasp. I could tell it had a camera. Beverly wasn't even trying to be subtle anymore. I looked straight at it, then gave a little wave. Minutes later her voice echoed from the ridge behind the tree line. You've been reported to the environmental board. I turned around slowly. There she was, standing in a linen jacket like it was courtroom day, holding a phone to her ear and glaring at me like I'd just dumped oil in the river. Disturbing a riparian ecosystem is a federal offense, she shouted. I didn't answer, just kept hammering. The foundation was legal, the setback distance was legal, and the land use code was crystal clear. If she had anything real, she'd be holding it, not screaming empty threats through the pines. You're ignoring federal regulations, she barked again. That's when I pulled out my ace. I'm actually a licensed civil engineer, I called back. Spent 12 years in water resource management. You want to file a report? I'll help you format it correctly. She didn't respond, just froze like someone had unplugged her battery. Could see it sinking in the realization that this wasn't going to be easy. I wasn't just some handyman with a pickup and a weekend plan. I'd designed dams in 3 states, drafted environmental impact reports longer than her HOA manuals, and I wasn't even close to done that night. My motion sensor lights kicked on just after midnight. I stepped outside with a flashlight, barefoot, quiet. There was a figure near the edge of the property line, holding something in their hand. I stayed in the dark, watched from the shadows. It was Beverly, and she was pouring something along the gravel drive, a thick, dark line trailing behind her. Like Oilot, she didn't see me until I clicked the flashlight on and stepped out. Beverly, she jerked up, eyes wide. What the hell are you doing? She stammered. I was just checking you're on my property. At night, with a jug of God knows what. That's trespassing. That's sabotage. She dropped the container. It hit the ground with a hollow thud and rolled. Gasoline. I could smell it before I even moved. She turned and ran. I didn't chase her. I walked straight to the trail cam I'd mounted by the woods, pulled the memory card, and slid it into my laptop. There it was, clear as daylight. She'd just committed a felony, and tomorrow, she'd find out who she was really messing with. By morning, I had the footage saved on 2 drives and uploaded to a private cloud. I wasn't new to people like Beverly. Back in my city days, I dealt with corporate sabotage and legal manipulation. She thought she was clever, sneaking around in the dark with a gas can like a cartoon villain, but she'd just crossed into real criminal territory. I didn't rush. I finished framing the east wall before driving into town. The sheriff's office was small, tucked behind a diner and an old feed store. I walked in, calm as ever, nodded to the deputy behind the desk, and asked to speak with Sergeant Rivas. He came out a minute later, coffee in hand. You again, he said with a grin that was fast. Didn't take long, I replied. Thought you might want to see this. He followed me outside, leaned into my truck window, and watched the short clip play on my tablet. Beverly, clear as day, walking along my property line, tipping a gas container onto the gravel. He didn't even blink. That's arson's setup if I've ever seen one, he muttered. You want to press charges? Not yet, I said, but I want this on record. And I want her warned officially. He nodded. We'll file it. If she sets foot on your land again, it's a whole new ballgame. That should have been the end of it. But Beverly, she didn't back off. She escalated. That night I got a call from a blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. You think you're smarter than me, the voice said, low and sharp, but this community won't protect people like you forever. I stayed silent. She didn't know I was recording. You think a piece of paper makes you untouchable? She hissed. We built this town. People here listen to us. Then the line went dead. The next morning I found my trailer tires slashed. Clean cuts, professional, no footprints in the gravel. No cameras nearby. She was getting desperate, and desperate people get sloppy. I didn't call the sheriff this time. I didn't need to. I had a plan. I drove down to the county clerk's office and requested every public file with the Hartwell Community Enrichment Council's name on it. Turned out they weren't even a registered HOA, just a loose group of 5 people. Beverly, her husband, and 3 neighbors who appointed themselves guardians of the area after the original developer went bankrupt. No legal standing, no enforcement rights, no authority whatsoever. And better yet, they'd been collecting voluntary dues from new homeowners for years. No tax filings, no oversight. I found a notarized letter from 2014 where Beverly claimed to be acting on behalf of the Hartwell Environmental Trust. The trust didn't exist. By sunset, I had everything I needed. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one, but I'd fight it my way, slow, precise, and in broad daylight. The next time I saw her, she acted like nothing had happened, pulled up in her SUV while I was stacking insulation panels, and stepped out holding a mug like she was on some morning stroll. "Lovely weather," she said, like we were neighbors who'd always gotten along. I didn't reply, just kept working. She stood there a while, waiting for me to bite. "You know, some people around here are starting to talk," she said finally. "This whole riverfront thing, it's making folks nervous. A private cabin, right on the bend, looks aggressive." I stopped, looked her in the eye. "It's called ownership, Beverly, not aggression. You should try it sometime." She didn't flinch. "You've made your point," she said, smiling tight. "But people like you don't usually stay long. Something always comes up." It was a threat, polished, sugar-coated, but still a threat, and that's when I handed her a white envelope, sealed, addressed in clean block letters. She hesitated, then took it. "What is this?" "Certified copy of your fake HOA's tax fraud records." I had a lawyer verify every missing report, the names on the council, the donation claims, the lack of IRS filings. All of it. She stiffened. "You're bluffing." "No, Beverly, I'm building." She opened the envelope slowly, read the first page. Her hand shook, just a little. "I haven't submitted it yet," I said, "but I will, unless you stay off my land, permanently." She looked up at me, and for the first time since all this started, I saw it: fear. Not just embarrassment or outrage. Real, quiet fear. "This is blackmail," she whispered. "No," I said. "This is me giving you a choice. You leave me alone, or I let the state see what your enrichment council has been enriching." She didn't say a word, just turned, got in her SUV, and drove off without slamming the door. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like it was over. But it wasn't, because that night I got an alert on my phone motion near the river dock. I pulled up the feed from my cam and froze. It wasn't Beverly this time, it was two men. One had a crowbar, the other had a can of white paint and a stencil that read, "Private property. Do not enter by order of the HOA." They were planting fake signs again, but this time they didn't know I was watching. And they definitely didn't know I was already on the phone with a state investigator. Asterisk. The investigator's name was Colleen Ruiz. Sharp voice, straight to the point. I sent her everything: the fake signs, the footage of the two men trespassing, the envelope of unfiled documents tied to Beverly's so-called council. She didn't even hesitate. "These aren't just HOA violations," she said. "If this is real, and from what I see, it is, you're looking at tax evasion, impersonation of authority, and criminal intimidation." I could hear typing in the background, fast, like she was already building the case. "Keep your cameras rolling," she told me. "We'll notify local law enforcement, but if they push further, call me directly." I hung up and checked the live feed. Again, the two men were still by the dock, laughing like they were on some mission from God. One of them was spray painting my utility box while the other peeled back my private land surveyed and recorded placard and tossed it into the river. I didn't move. I just pressed the record button, zoomed in, and got crystal clear video of both their faces. And right in the middle of it, Beverly showed up. She walked down the slope like she was inspecting her property, hands clasped behind her back, nodding at the men like she was their manager. Couldn't hear her, but the way she pointed toward the cabin frame, the way she whispered in one guy's ear and grinned, told me everything. This wasn't her losing control, this was her control. Fake signs, night visits, staged violations. She was trying to build a paper trail of non-compliance to make it look like I was the one breaking rules. A long setup for a bigger takedown, but she didn't know what I had planned next. That weekend, I invited the real surveyor back. Same guy who helped mark the boundary lines when I bought the land, only this time I had him bring his drone. We scanned the entire area. Every tree line, every path, every dock, post and planted sign. Then we flagged every intrusion from her side, including the illegal trail she'd cut from her backyard straight to the riverbank behind my cabin by Monday morning. I had a full aerial report in my inbox, stamped and signed. That same morning, I mailed a formal cease and desist to Beverly's house, with a copy sent to the sheriff, the county zoning board, and Colleen Ruiz. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was when the sheriff knocked on her door the next day, not mine. I watched from the ridge as they stepped onto her porch, 3 of them, not yelling, not aggressive, just calm, official ... and holding a warrant. She answered in her robe. 10 minutes later, she was pacing her lawn, face red, waving her arms at the officers. But it didn't matter, because they weren't listening to her anymore. They were listening to me, and for the first time since she tried to throw me off my own land, she realized something she should have known from day one. This river didn't belong to her. It never did. Asterisk. By the end of that week, her perfect little control system began to crumble. The sheriff's department confirmed what I already knew. None of the signs, none of the letters, none of the rules she'd thrown at people for years had any legal weight. Every so-called violation she'd handed out to neighbors, every threat of fines, every HOA rule was based on nothing but her ego and a fake council seal. And now, the neighbors were finding out. Word spread fast, faster than I expected. One by one, people who had stayed quiet came to my build site, not to argue but to talk, to vent, to share stories. A retired couple who paid her $400 in fake dues, a single mom who'd been fined for parking her trailer too close to the trail, a war vet who got a warning letter just for planting a flagpole in his front yard. She'd pushed all of them, she made them think they were alone. But once the truth broke through, people started comparing notes and the whole thing unraveled, and Beverly, she was spiraling. She drove up 2 days after the sheriff's visit, windows rolled down, blasting a voicemail from her lawyer through her car speakers like it was supposed to scare me. I didn't say a word, just pointed toward the new sign I'd put up by my cabin. Private riverfront property owner Timber Mitchell, verified and recorded. She stared at it for a long time. Then she shouted, "You think you've won? I think this is over." I stepped down from the scaffolding, took off my gloves, and walked up close enough for her to hear me clear. "It's not about winning, Beverly. It's about you finally getting caught." She froze, jaw clenched. "I've got your fake trust filings. I've got footage of you trespassing, vandalizing, and lying to the police. I've got neighbors willing to testify, and now the county has you on their radar. You don't belong here." She hissed. I smiled. "I own here." She didn't reply, just hit the gas and peeled out, kicking gravel behind her like a child throwing a tantrum. But she wasn't the only one who lost something that same day. The county office sent out a formal notice to everyone in the area. Hartwell Community Enrichment Council has no legal authority and is no longer recognized as any form of regulatory body. Every house that had ever received a fake fine got a letter. Every violation she'd handed out was declared void. In the kicker, the IRS launched a formal audit on her group. She'd been collecting thousands under the table, untaxed and unregistered, and now she couldn't bury it. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It came in the form of quiet panic, and a knock on her door that didn't go away after the first time. But I wasn't done yet, because tucked in my drawer was one last piece of paper, a civil suit, and it had her name on it, asterisk. I filed the civil suit on a Tuesday. It wasn't about money. I wasn't trying to get rich off Beverly Hartwell. I just wanted it all on record. Every fake letter, every threat, every dollar she took from neighbors who didn't know any better. I wanted her behavior pinned to her name in public documents that couldn't be erased or buried, and I wanted people to know, she didn't break me. 3 weeks later, she was served, right there in her driveway, in full view of her neighbors. She tried to argue with the process server, flailed her arms, demanded they speak to her attorney, but it was too late. She had to face it, and once she realized I wasn't bluffing, that I had video, statements, land records, survey maps, and even voice recordings, she did what people like her always do when their empire cracks. She played the victim. Suddenly, it was all a misunderstanding. She started posting online about how she was being harassed, how people had twisted her words, how she only ever wanted to protect the community, but no one was buying it anymore. Not after the truth came out. She lost her seat on every local board. Neighbors stopped answering her. Messages, real estate agents in the county flagged her name. And when I showed up in court for the first hearing, calm, clean, with a stack of printed exhibits under my arm, she didn't even make eye contact. The judge read the complaint and flipped slowly through the evidence. He didn't say much, just nodded, looked over his glasses and said, "We'll move forward with discovery." Her lawyer leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Her hands trembled. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in months. The cabin was nearly finished by then. I spent the next week installing the dock, sealing the windows, and finally hanging a small wooden plaque inside, right above the fireplace. It read, "My land, my rules, my peace." And on the final evening before winter touched the trees, I sat on the porch, watching the river roll past, silent, clean. Mine, and I thought about how far she'd gone just to control something she never owned. Used lies, fear, and fake power. I used truth, patience, and a camera. And in the end, she wasn't arrested in handcuffs. She wasn't dragged out on the news. No, she was just exposed. And sometimes that's the most powerful punishment of all. Because I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to outlast her. Asterisk if you'd like a short summary. YouTube version, viral caption, or thumbnail prompt for this full story under the title. HOA calls 911 when I build my lake cabin. Didn't know I owned the entire river. Just say the word. Asterisk, asterisk. Some people rule with fear. Others lead with integrity. And sometimes, the best revenge is just living well in a community where respect finally replaced rules. Thanks for watching. Rise Fuel, where truth hits harder than HOA fines. Drop your HOA horror stories in the comments. Like if you've ever faced a power-hungry neighbor. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that hit back.